Hey, man, it was a bad game. It's the worst of the bad games. And to be honest, we've seen it a few times. We got to be honest, we got to be objective. We've seen it a few times. We saw a costly fumble. We've seen it against Minnesota, we've seen it against New Orleans. Whew, boy, that was bad. That was really bad. You know, I try to do the best that I can, despite my support for anyone, to have honest scales and to call a spade a spade. This was a terrible, terrible game by Bryce Young, without question, right? And you can point to him as the reason why this loss was suffered. You can't throw 3 interceptions in a game. You can't throw 2 pick sixes and, think you're going to compete. It's just not going to happen. And this is not necessarily one of those situations where I want to try to do this to justify like, oh, okay, I have to come out and kill the guy because I'm usually known as someone that's a huge supporter and change my position. No, I mean, just calling a spade a spade. It was a bad game. It was a terrible game, right? I think there are things, if we look at it objectively, that can lead to that. The lack of protection can lead to that. The lack of separation down the field can lead to that, but it's still not an excuse. You still have to protect the football above all else. There was a couple of times where we saw the ball being held on for too long, right, where you should have thrown the ball away. The broadcasters actually mentioned that. I think Trent Green said that at one point when he got sacked, looking for somewhere to go down the field on a 3rd and short, right? But the point is look, you can't take away from the fact that, yes, this game was 100% lost because of turnovers. The defense played pretty solid. They were able to hold the Colts to 20 points, total. I think they held them to 80 yards rushing, which is, pretty good when you consider their offensive line and the running back in Jonathan Taylor, that they have. So not bad. But at the same time, like I said, you cannot absolve Bryce Young of the turnovers. Now, am I ready to jump ship because of one game? No, absolutely not. Should Bryce Young be benched because of one game? No, absolutely not. And I know this is going to be hard to hear, especially when you see what happened in Houston yesterday. That was absolutely incredible. And salute to Stroud and that organization. I mean, that kid looks marvelous, right? And it makes you wonder, like, I had this really weird conversation. My wife doesn't really watch football, but I was like, every now and again I'll go conspiracy brain or whatever like that. And I had this really weird, like, conspiracy kind of rattling around in my head about, like, what if CJ Stroud last week, like, yeah, sure, he got pressured a lot, but 140 yards compared to what you've seen from him throughout his entire, rookie campaign, like, is it possible that either one or two scenarios has happened? This guy has always lived in the shadow of Bryce Young, right? Bryce was the guy in California compared to him. He was the higher recruit. He was more touted. He turned down USC to go to Alabama. CJ Stroud was, obviously highly recruited, and he went to Ohio State. And it's kind of always been this thing of like, hey, this guy's, way better or whatever like that. And now we're seeing the complete opposite when they get to the NFL where, I hate to say it, where it matters the most. And at least for now. Now, I will say this. I've said this before. The organizational situations couldn't be more different. Just because a story was written, like, here's a great example, right? So follow me for a second. Just because the Texans were supposed to be bad, right? Just because the Panthers were supposed to be better doesn't mean that's how the situations shape out. The Panthers situation looks different. The Texans situation looks different. They lost a lot of starters, but they've got guys on the roster that stepped up. Offensive line, he's been protected pretty well, throughout this rookie year for him. Not so much on this side. We saw a difference last year, but the offensive line is in shambles this year compared to what it was last year. The whole offense in general, like, it's a new offense. And, this is something I'll get into probably. I'm going to do a live broadcast of the game on Thursday night. So make sure to join me on Thursday to, kind of just sit and watch the game and just, kind of enjoy. And we'll talk and maybe have some guests and things like that. But one of the things that I'm going to talk about is, like, look, it's possible that organizationally there's too many cooks in the kitchen. We've seen this before, right? We've seen dream teams or whatever be put together and it not work out. this may be one of those situations. There may be way too many cooks in the kitchen in this situation, but we don't know that yet. But here's the point. You can't take away what this kid is doing, but and try to compare Bryce to it. I live by saying comparison is the enemy of joy. I'm not going to compare myself to anybody else and what they're doing, and neither should you. And I'm not going to do it in this situation because you never know how this is going to shape out. We saw Baker Mayfield have an excellent rookie season. Josh Allen, not so much. And the situations couldn't be more different. Now, do I think that it'll be like this with Stroud? No. I think Stroud is the real deal. He is the real deal. But I refuse personally to look at that and say, like, man, we chose the wrong guy. No, because we don't know what he would look like in this situation. It's a lot different here than it is down there, right? But it's not to absolve him of anything. But back to the conspiracy. Is it possible that living in that shadow makes it a little difficult to perform, especially considering that you guys haven't played each other since 8th grade? Or is it even possible because of the kind of man that C.J. Stroud is? Remember that clip of him talking about Bryce in the press conference where he said something to the effect of, I know, like as a QB, like we can see what's going on. Like I know what's going on down there, and I can see which was kind of an organizational shot. Which funny because when they showed that clip of Nicole and David Tepper shaking his hand, that was just kind of wild. But he kind of admitted it. Hey, I see what's going on down there. Like real ones know. Pretty much is what he was saying. And a lot of pundits have been saying the same thing. Now, again, does that make it, look better that you threw 3 picks and 2 pick sixes? No, absolutely not. Not going to be absolved of this. Like, you got to do better. But is it possible, and again, this is conspiracy theory brain in me, right? I do this from time to time. Is it possible that he kind of, eased up a little bit so his man could look better? I mean, look, do I believe that to be true? No, I don't. But it's just one of those things that, when you do content, you just, look for everything, right? But anyway, this was a terrible showing. Now, what I do want to do is go to a clip that I saw on Twitter. Saw this clip on Twitter, and I'd like to go to this clip to be able to, just kind of, in my opinion, I think how we should be viewing this is the same way that the guys in the locker room are viewing this. This is not the first time a quarterback has had a rough showing. It won't be the last. Obviously 2 pick sixes is not something you see, pretty commonly. But I think that I like the fact that his team is coming out immediately, right? Because it's so easy to just be like, man, this is all on Bryce. So easy to do that. When we know without question, hey, you can't absolve these guys, some of these guys, for blame, especially when, we see what's going on. But it's good for them to have the support. So let's check out what they had to say here.
That's our guy, 100%.
Yeah,
like 100%. That's our dude, 100% all the time. I'm never gonna answer a question any other way than that because that's something I believe. In my heart, that's our guy. Showed it time and time again. So mistakes, one bad game isn't going to change that no matter.
That's right. One monkey don't stop no show. Ain't that what they say? Hey, man, it was a bad game. It's the worst of the bad games. And to be honest, we've seen it a few times. We got to be honest. We got to be objective. We've seen it a few times. We saw a costly fumble. We've seen it against Minnesota. We've seen it against New Orleans. So it's happened. But we got to grow from it.
What?
I seen him how he works starting in training camp, OTAs and then training camp, and we're in this battle together, and the season's going the way it's going, and then he hasn't changed. He's been the same Bryce since day one. And
I want you to stop on that point for just 1 second and ask yourself this, because we are in the season. Thursday is going to be a landmark game for both the Carolina Panthers and the Chicago Bears, because Chicago, even if they win out, it looks like right now they're going to get the number 1 overall pick from us, right? We see that happening already. Here's the thing that I would ask myself. Based on what you saw this weekend from the person that's deemed to be the number 1 overall pick, how do you think he would fare? Because I see this a lot. I see a lot of people, and I heard someone, I want to say it's Josh Graham. Shout out to Josh Graham from I can't remember the radio station that he works for or whatever, but he's got a really cool YouTube channel. I really like him, and 99.9 The Fan. Watch those guys a lot, but salute to them. And I heard him say, and sometimes we get caught up in hyperbole, just become prisoners of the moment. But I believed him wholeheartedly. Whether or not I agree with this statement or not, I did hear him say that he believes that even in this draft class, if we're just looking at it from college tape, not what we're seeing right now, right? But if we look at it from the college tape, that he believed that Bryce would still be in this draft class number one. Now, again, that's not my opinion. I'm not really going to share my opinion on that. It was just something that he shared. But again, I'm asking this. Based on what we saw this weekend, I saw a quarterback like literally climb up in the stands and cry after losing the game, which is, that's fine. You know, it happens. But that same quarterback that's the number one overall pick also said something in, you know, behind the scenes, which we've seen ourselves, right? You know, after the Super Bowl, a lot different situation, nowhere near as, you know, sulky or whatever like that. Like, I just want to go home and, you know, hug my dog and watch some shows, you know? And I'm like, okay, what? So my question would be this. Yeah, the talent is there. The talent is immense. How you handling this? How you handling this situation? You know, how are you dealing with, you know, organizational malpractice and dysfunction? How are you dealing with throwing picks? You know, defense showing you something you hadn't seen before. How you handling that? And the one good thing about Bryce Young is we see, like, look, he's like Miles was saying, he's been the same guy despite anything that's happened. He hadn't seen a lot of success here, right? And even last week, everybody was excited. The team was excited. Go watch those clips of his expression. I mean, yeah, he was very excited walking into the locker room, as you should be. But then it's tempered back down, no pun intended. And the expectations are back to, hey, we got to get back to it. You know, got to get back to it.
And one, I seen him how he works starting in training camp, well, OTAs and then training camp, and we're in this battle together, and you know, the season's going the way it's going, and then he hasn't changed. He's been the same Bryce since day one, and that's more than enough that I need for my starting quarterback to have any confidence in him. So.
And salute to Miles, by the way. Miles has been catching it. I talked about it last video. Miles has been absolutely catching it, but man, he showed up. He showed up. He looked much better than he has, and you can see that, you know, the injury is probably healing a little bit better. He's getting more comfortable within the offense, and I hope to see him do better. The last thing you want to see is, one, you know, a guy that has some success not have the same success, but two, you don't want to see a guy that you paid, like a free agent. I mean, it's starting to shape out that the free agent class and many other moves that we've made have just been absolutely terrible. That's a whole nother video and stuff that we'll dive into as far as front office situations are concerned. But, you know, salute to Miles for his showing today.
I'm not worried about anything. It's just a bad game by him. I'm pretty sure he knows that, but we're going to get back to work, and we got prime time on Thursday. So.
He's going to have days. You know, today was a day, but he's going to have way more great days than today. And I know that for a fact. So he knows that. Everybody knows that. It's just part of the growing process.
We believe very strongly in Bryce. Coming into this game, I felt like he was hitting a rhythm and a stride. This is a step backwards for us as an offense. You know, we were thought we had several games in a row where we're making good strides. And then we went out and laid an egg today offensively. Yeah. So credit the Colts defense, credit Gus Bradley and their players, the way they, you know, how they played us. We got to do a better job. But it was one game. And the reality is not that we were lighting up the scoreboard, but Bryce has been playing good football. This is one game, and so I'm not even thinking twice about it.
Good for Frank, because you shouldn't. You really shouldn't. There should not be any thought in your mind about benching Bryce Young after this one bad performance. We always like to bring up Peyton Manning and how terrible he looked as a rookie. You know, he took a lot of chances. One of the things that I think I saw yesterday, and you know, some people may think different of this. I think there was a moment, especially when Bryce threw that pick to the linebacker. It wasn't Darius Leonard, but it was where he, you know, kind of backpedaled and didn't really put his foot and plant his foot in the ground enough. And, you know, pressure was, you know, getting ready to come. And he throws that ball up, and it was kind of one of those situations that could have went either way. The linebacker, if he wasn't really twitchy enough, never would have got that pick, but the ball probably would have fell short anyway. Not sure. I can't remember who it was going to. But it kind of felt like in that moment, like he's just like, you know what? Let's just try some stuff. Let's just throw it out there. Let's just see what we can and can't do. and make adjustments. You know, that's, to me, if you start seeing better from that, that's what you want to see. You want to see a guy that doesn't become skittish, right? Holding on to the ball too long, coverage sacks, if you will. It doesn't necessarily fare well for his, like, I guess physical well-being, if you will. But I like seeing it because at least it shows that he has a mindset of pushing the ball down the field. You want to see check downs are something that you do want to see, but you can't just do it all the time. And that's sort of what it looks like right now. But that's only because of what's available and what's not. But again, what I don't want to do is become one of the people that is tagged or deemed, and I don't really care about this. I mean, if you're going to call me this, call me what you want to call me, right? But I want to have at least balanced scales and play it fair. And in fairness, it looked awful today, and there's no two ways around it. So let me know what you think below. Make sure to comment, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell notification so you never miss a video. This is John from the One Carolina Show. Don't forget to join me on Thursday where I'll be live streaming from the game against Chicago. Primetime, baby. Finally. Might not be the best. We might get smacked. Who knows? But, it's ride or die, man, regardless of what happens. I'm rolling with who we have on our team, top to bottom, and it's keep pounding until I die. So you know what it means. Keep pounding.